DC keeps introducing new characters meant to shape the future of its universe. Fresh faces with powerful abilities, bold concepts, and storylines designed to stand beside legends. Some arrive with instant hype, strong writing, and fan attention. But not all of them get the push they deserve. Momentum fades, appearances slow, and potential is left unexplored. These characters aren't forgotten yet, but they're dangerously close. So, which recent DC characters have massive potential DC still hasn't fully used? Here are 10 heroes and villains you should be watching closely. At number 10 is Duke Thomas, or The Signal. Although his name wasn't revealed until issue 30, he was introduced in 2013's Batman Volume 2 issue 21 by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, receiving a massive initial push from DC. First leading the We Are Robin movement, Duke was later trained by Batman to become The Signal, Gotham's exclusive daytime protector in distinct yellow armor. What made Duke special wasn't just his daylight mandate, but his metahuman photokinetic abilities to manipulate light and shadow, setting him apart from standard gadget-wielding orphans. Unfortunately, DC failed to capitalize on this brilliant premise. His powers grew overly complicated, and writers often defaulted to treating him like just another Robin. The severely overcrowded Bat family, combined with editorial preference for gritty, nocturnal stories, left this daylight operating metahuman without a clear narrative home after Batman and the Outsiders ended. While the untapped concept of Gotham by day gives him massive potential to bridge Batman's world with the wider superpowered universe, Duke currently remains benched, relegated to occasional background cameos without an active ongoing storyline. At number 9 is Simon Baz, or Green Lantern. Introduced in the New 52F CBD Special Edition Issue 1 by Jeff Johns and Doug Mahnke in 2012, Simon Baz received a massive initial push as the focal point of the Green Lantern mythos. Handpicked by Johns, Baz played a notable role in the Trinity War event. What made him special was the incredible real-world grounding he brought to the cosmic franchise as an Arab-American Muslim navigating post-9/11 prejudice. Uniquely, he carried a firearm because he did not fully trust his ring and possessed a rare ability called Emerald Sight. However, his momentum stalled when paired with Jessica Cruz in Green Lanterns. While their dynamic was great, her compelling arc eclipsed his. As Hal Jordan returned and the roster of Earth-based Lanterns swelled, DC struggled to balance them, and Baz fell off the priority list. Despite his massive potential for gritty, street-level cosmic stories as a relatable underdog, his current status is just a background Lantern who rarely receives spoken dialogue. However, his benching might change soon, depending on if he appears in the upcoming HBO Max Lantern series. At number 8 is Sideways, or Derek James. Introduced in Sideways Issue 1 by Dan DiDio, Kenneth Rocafort, and Justin Jordan in 2018, Derek James received a massive initial push. He debuted as the flagship character of the New Age of DC Heroes initiative, tying directly into the Dark Knight's Metal event. What made Derek special was that he was essentially the DC equivalent to the famous web-slinger. He was a witty teen boasting an amazing visual design and visually stunning powers to tear rifts through space and the multiverse. However, his momentum started falling apart when the entire new line failed to find a substantial audience. His solo series was abruptly canceled at issue 13. Furthermore, when Dan DiDio left DC, Derek lost his primary championship. Because he is not tied to a prominent legacy family, it became hard to insert him into other books seamlessly. While a dimension-tearing teenager holds massive potential as a multiversal guide, his current status is deep storage, entirely absent. And if even a flagship multiverse hero couldn't survive editorial shifts, the next entries, featuring a Brazilian demigod, an arrogant anti-Batman, an international speedster, and a rogue assassin, prove that hype alone means nothing without long-term vision. At number 7 is Yara Flor, or Wonder Girl. Introduced in Dark Knight's Death Metal Issue 7 by Joelle Jones in 2021, Yara Flor got a massive initial push as the absolute breakout star of the Future State event. DC fast-tracked her into an ongoing solo series and began developing a live-action television show. What made Yara special was drawing from Brazilian mythology instead of Greek lore, offering massive expansion to the Wonder Woman world. Her brash and aggressive personality was a perfect contrast to Diana and her measured diplomacy. However, her momentum started falling apart when the television show was scrapped in development. Shortly after, her solo series suffered heavy delays and was abruptly canceled at issue 7. When DC pivoted away from the future state timeline, Yara lost her momentum and was awkwardly folded back into the overcrowded present-day Amazon mythos. South American mythology is incredibly rich and rarely explored, meaning she still holds massive potential, yet she remains entirely sidelined today. At number 6 is Ghostmaker, or Minkoa Koa Khan. Introduced in Batman Volume 3, Issue 100 by James Tynion IV and Jorge Jimenez, in 2020, Ghostmaker received a massive initial push. Debuting as Bruce Wayne's teenage training rival, he was just as skilled as Batman, ultimately taking over leadership of Batman Inc. What made Koa special was being the ultimate anti-Batman. He fights crime not out of tragedy or a sense of duty, but purely for the art of it. As an arrogant, wealthy, sociopathic playboy who kills, their resulting dynamic was electric. However, his momentum started falling apart once Tynion left the title, as subsequent writers simply did not know what to do with him. He is incredibly overpowered and hard to write into standard stories because his arrogant personality intentionally rubs the established Robins the wrong way. While he still holds massive potential to anchor high-octane international espionage stories disconnected from Bruce, his current status is total limbo, having essentially vanished from the board right now. At number 5 is Avery Ho, or The Flash of China. Introduced in The Flash Volume 5, Issue 3 by Joshua Williamson and Carmine Di Giandomenico in 2016, Avery Ho received a massive initial push as a key ensemble member of the acclaimed New Superman series. Forming the Justice League of China, she was adopted into the main Flash family, crossing over in major events. What made Avery special was gaining her powers from a Speed Force storm rather than a lab accident. Her connections to Chinese mythology and her role as a speedster who didn't grow up idolizing Barry Allen gave her a completely fresh perspective. However, her momentum started falling apart when New Superman ended, losing her unique team dynamic. She was fully absorbed into the main Flash book just as Wally West returned and the cast expanded. Because the Flash family is notoriously top-heavy, Avery was pushed out of focus. While she holds massive potential to anchor global stories, her current status is relegated to a background speedster today. At number 4 is Calvin Rose, or Talon. Introduced in Talon Issue 0 by James Tynion IV. In 2012, with co-plotter Scott Snyder, Calvin Rose received a massive initial push as the star of the very first spin-off series of the New 52 Batman run. Riding the massive wave of the critically acclaimed Court of Owls storyline, what made Calvin special was his background as an escape artist who was recruited by the sinister organization but became the only Talon to ever escape them. As a master assassin on the run from an unbeatable secret society, his premise was thrilling. However, his momentum started falling apart when his solo series was canceled at issue 17. He was briefly folded into the Batman Eternal Weekly series before completely dropping off the map. Because DC moved the Court of Owls past him to face Nightwing and Batman, Calvin lost his narrative engine. While he holds massive potential as an elite assassin trying to do good, his current status is entirely forgotten. Escaping the Court of Owls is one thing, but surviving DC's brutal editorial shifts is a completely different game. As we enter the top 3, we are looking at a cosmic powerhouse abandoned by her creators, the Joker's viral successor who lost her spotlight, and an urban heavy hitter who can literally weaponize the streets of Gotham. At number 3 is Naomi McDuffy. Introduced in Naomi Issue 1 by Brian Michael Bendis, David F. Walker, and Jamal Campbell. In 2019, Naomi McDuffy received one of the biggest initial pushes in modern DC history. She was given a critically acclaimed solo series, instant membership on the main Justice League, and a live-action CW television show. What made Naomi special was her status as an absolute powerhouse. As a refugee from an alternate Earth overflowing with raw, brilliant energy, her intriguing mystery box origin story drove massive reader curiosity. However, her momentum started falling apart when Bendis eventually left DC Comics. Furthermore, the CW show was critically panned and canceled after just one season, completely killing her mainstream momentum. She was heavily perceived by fans as a pet character forced onto the Justice League too quickly, before truly earning her stripes. When her creator departed, no other writers picked up her baton. While she holds massive potential, she is unfortunately missing in action entirely today. At number 2 is Punchline, or Alexis K. Introduced in Batman Volume 3, Issue 89 by James Tynion IV and Jorge Jimenez in 2020, Alexis Kay received a massive initial push as the Joker's new issue, 2 after Harley Quinn became a hero. Her debut caused a real-world speculation boom, making her the centerpiece of the Joker War event. What made Punchline special was being the anti-Harley. Instead of an abused victim, Alexis was a cold, calculating, internet-radicalized true crime podcaster who chose to follow the Joker because she believed in his chaotic ideology. However, her momentum started falling apart after Joker War when Joker left Gotham. Left behind, she was given a backup story and a mini-series about her trial. But it dragged on too long, losing her explosive debut momentum. Because DC currently prefers writing the Joker as a solo force of nature, Punchline struggles to hold the narrative weight alone. While she holds massive potential representing modern villainy through weaponized social media, her current status is heavily demoted. At number 1 is City Boy or Cameron Kim. Introduced in the Wildstorm 30th Anniversary Special by Greg Pak and Minkyu Jung in 2022, Cameron Kim received a massive initial push as a flagship character of the We Are Legends initiative, a specific publishing line celebrating Asian American and Pacific Islander heritage. His solo miniseries featured major guest stars like Superman, Nightwing, and Swamp Thing. What made City Boy truly special was his incredibly unique abilities. He can literally speak to the sentient avatars of cities like Metropolis or Gotham, physically manifesting structures, pipes, and concrete from the environment to fight for him. However, his momentum started falling apart the moment his 6-issue miniseries concluded, because DC simply did not slot him into another book or team immediately after. His launch momentum was totally killed. His powers are somewhat niche, requiring writers willing to dive into complex urban fantasy rather than standard superhero brawls. While he holds massive potential to completely redefine urban combat in DC, his current status is unfortunately missing in action entirely right now. These rising DC characters are just getting started, and their untapped potential could redefine the future of the entire universe. Press the subscribe button and bell icon for regular updates.